Welcome, financial professionals. I'm Todd Scott, Regional Vice President here at E4 Insurance Services, welcoming you to the Brew, building relationships every week. Thanks for tuning in. For those of you joining the Brew for the first time, welcome. We like to start the Brewcast by celebrating today's national days. Today is National Color Day, National Make a Dog's Day, and Smart is a Cool Day. Today we are wrapping up October's lineup on leveraging the power of annuities. I'm here with Greg Short, Regional Vice President at MassMutual, to discuss key features and benefits in inherited annuities and transferring wealth to the next generation. Greg, thank you for joining me today, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Todd. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me here today. As Todd mentioned, I'm with MassMutual Ascend, and our topic for the Brew today is inherited annuities and transferring the wealth to the next generation. If you're not familiar with MassMutual Ascend, I'll share a little insight with you. We were a great American life insurance company for years, and just about 4.5 years ago, the annuity division was purchased by MassMutual. So we're a wholly owned, standalone subsidiary of MassMutual, focusing on fixed annuities, fixed index annuities. We were the first to bring fee-based fixed annuities to the market and registered index-linked annuities. So we're ranked A++, and our parent company, MassMutual, is ranked A++ as well. So we basically just focus on annuities, and they're focused on whole life and annuities. So two separate companies and different distribution. As I mentioned, we'll talk about inherited annuities today. We're going to focus on this particular topic and talking about transferring wealth to the next generation. We'll look at opportunities and uncover some ideas. Now, baby boomers are set to pass $68 trillion to their children. This is more wealth than any other generation. Now, Gen X is in charge of most of these assets, and so you want to be talking to the next generation, and we'll dig into that in just a minute. First, I just want to talk about the demand. Here you can see fixed annuities year to date, that would be the end of Q2, 83.7 billion, and index annuities just under 60 billion. The reason I bring this up is we're up 1% year over year, about 85 billion as the end of June in fixed and about 60 billion in index. Why is this a big deal? So we broke records. Every single one of us on this call, whether you're a carrier or an IMO, broke a record the last 2 years in 23, 24, and now we're coming at the end of 25, and we're still slightly up. There was concern at the beginning of the year that we would be down, but we're still going to come in between 400 and 450 billion dollars in annuity sales across every category, whether it's variable or fixed. So the demand is there. And as you know, we have 10,000 folks a day turning 65. So leaving a tax-deferred legacy. For years, we've only thought that we have lump sum and that your clients would be hit with a taxable event. And as I just mentioned, there's record inflows year over year in annuities. With the idea of spreading out the tax burden, it's something I'd like to focus on, where it's a more efficient approach to transfer this wealth, whether it's a qualified inherited annuity or a non-qualified annuity. We can do that for your clients. One thing that I'll mention when you bring the case to us is you talk to your RVP at E4, or you talk to us. We'll run through the scenario for you. We'll be able to tell you whether we can look at it as spousal continuation or we look at it as an inherited annuity. But we're able to do both. So the other thing that I like to point out is the next generation rarely works with the parents' advisors. So you want to include the next generation in your conversation. Invite them to your annual gatherings, bring them in for a review, get to know them, increase the chances, because 83% of beneficiaries fire their parents' advisor and go with a different advisor. So definitely bring in the adult kids, include them in the conversation. There is wealth there. You will uncover it in these conversations, and the goal is to control the legacy. Plus, as you know, with annuities, you can bypass probate. So, up until a few years ago, most people have thought lump sum is the only option, but you can stretch with a non-spousal inherited annuity, whether it's non-qualified stretch or you might call it a beneficiary IRA. Different verbiage is used in our industry, and it's really ideal for contracts with low cost basis and significant gains because you want to spread out the taxable gains. So to keep it straight in your head, take a note right here. So with non-qualified funds, with the Non-Secure Act, it's you pay out over the life expectancy. While it's qualified funds, the Secure Act is what went into place in 2020, and that's paying out subject to the rules. Typically, it's payout in 10, but there's a couple of different rules that we'd be able to go over for you whenever you have a case. So we've already mentioned the benefits before, but I'll highlight them again. The goal is to continue the annuities growth. You want that asset to grow, and it can provide a significant boost to the beneficiary's inheritance. You also want to spread income tax over time. So instead of taking that lump sum, spread it out over the life expectancy or spread it out over 10 years. And you also can designate specific beneficiaries on annuities. So one day your client can pass their loved one's generosity on to their heirs. So let's go over a case study. So generation one, John, husband, Jane, wife. John purchases a non-qualified annuity at the age of 65 for $100,000. And then in contract year 11, at age 75, John passes away. He took 0 distributions from that $100,000, and now it's grown to $153,945. And that's based on a conservative 4% return. So John's spouse, Jane, inherits the entire account value, and she is watching it grow. So then Jane passes away in contract year 21 at the age of 80. And the remaining account value at this time has grown significantly to $227,877. So some and for the 227,877 and pay significant taxes, or we can structure this as an inherited annuity or non-spousal inherited annuity for your clients. So here's in generation 2 is the non-spousal structuring of the annuity. So John and Jane's 48-year-old daughter, Allison, inherits the $227,000. She could take that lump sum, but chooses to stretch the payments and begin receiving payments based on her life expectancy. Now she's 48, and this grows to say $306,126 at age 75, and she's been receiving income for 28 years. What's exciting about this is she can now leave it to the 3rd generation. So Allison passes away, and her sole beneficiary is her daughter, Mary. She inherits the remaining account value of $190,000. Now Mary can take the lump sum, pay the taxes, or she can set up to receive distributions over the 11 years that are remaining in Allison's expected lifetime, which would total $239,000. Pretty exciting, and I think that she would definitely go that route versus taking the lump sum. So what are we looking for? What's the opportunity? Generational planning is huge. Like I mentioned before, 83% of beneficiaries do not go with the existing advisor from their parents. So what you want to do is include the next generation, how will you keep that asset when your client passes? It could easily move because a lot of kids have geographically moved across the country or in another state due to jobs, and you definitely want to include them into conversations. So bring them in with the conversation, likely have clients that will leave or receive annuities at death. And I'll just point out that MassMutual Ascend accepts qualified and non-qualified inherited annuities. But just if it's spousal, just remember we can still do spousal continuation. So we don't want to rule it out by thinking it has to be non-spousal. It can be spousal continuation as well. So different structuring of the annuity, but I just want to make sure we keep that in mind. So another idea is passing time with trust. So we have trust-owned annuities, corporate-owned annuities, non-profitly owned annuities. Just make sure that you run all the scenarios by your RVP at E4 or run it by us, and we'll be able to structure it for you. So I will highlight one solution that's geared towards non-spousal inherited annuities, American Legend 7. You may have heard of it. We've had this product for almost 15 years, slightly different iterations of it. We went from a Legend 1, Legend 2, Legend 3, and Legend 7. So it's our most popular product, and I'll just kind of highlight the details of that. We issue up to age 85, qualified or non-qualified. And one thing you want to keep in mind when you are doing inherited business, whether it's qualified or non-qualified, it only goes up to age 75 for the beneficiary. So minimum 10,000. That's another thing that I love about this contract is it's flexible premium. Minimum 10,000 to enter, and then every subsequent deposit's a minimum of 2,000. Now it says a maximum of $1 million up to age 85. We can take a little bit higher premium amounts. If you look to me to get, say, 1.5 million, just run the exception by me and I'll be able to review it for you. And then we'll be able to decide whether we can take more. You can see all the other strategies off to the side here. These are available index strategies, which I'll point out in just a minute on the rate sheet. But we offer pretty much all of our strategies on this product, which is another reason that I like it. So you can see here the withdrawal charge schedule, 9876543. And then during the first contract year on our products, you can take 10% out in the first year. You do not have to wait a year like many products that are on the market. But I recommend carving out any cash that's needed for your client for that first 12 months and let the contract grow as it's intended. So here I'll share the rates with you. You can always get current rates on all of our products at www.mmascendconnect.com. So write that down as well. But here are the rates, most recent rates that went into effect on October 7th. So I'll just highlight the rates on the left, MVA rates over 100,000. I'll point out that the S&P 500 one-year point-to-point with cap is 10%. One of the highest in the markets right now. And so we are definitely seeing inflows go into this index strategy. Now, the next one down, you'll see the 7-year cap lock. If you are familiar with us for the last couple of years, this has been a very, very popular strategy where you lock in the 7.25 cap for all 7 years. So therefore, you do not have to worry about any renewal issues where you may have experienced in the past, where a carrier may have given you one rate in year one and dropped it significantly throughout the contract. So that is an option. If you'd like to lock in at 7.25 for 7 years, you can do that, or you can go with the 10% cap, which can change annually, but we do publish renewal history. So happy to share that with you and show you how we manage our book. We try to be as clear as possible on how we manage our overall portfolio and our pricing. So next we have other strategies that you might like to utilize with your clients. I definitely like having some diversification. So I'd say iShares, U.S. real estate, 1-year point-to-point with a 12% cap is very strong, and it's good to put a portion of your client's funds tied to this strategy. And then what's really been on a tear the last year has been Spider Gold shares. So you see the cap at 12.5. This has been definitely a strategy that's being more utilized in the last couple of years. So it's a good way to hedge against the S&P 500. So your client wants to put 75% in the S&P 500 and say 25% tied to the Spider Gold shares. I'd highly recommend that. And then we have some low volatility strategies if that is something you like to utilize. The S&P 500 risk control 1 year point to point with participation rate of 75%. That is tied to the S&P, and the cash component is great because it's tied to the LIBOR, the 3-month LIBOR, versus being tied to fixed income. So that's performed nicely. I'd say 4 out of the last 6 years have been double-digit returns. So that's been good for clients that have been utilizing that strategy. And then I'd say the last 3 are not selected very much with our clients. I'd say the S&P US retiree spending gets a little bit of exposure. So if you'd like to spread this around, put a small portion into that. That tracks the spending of boomers. So those over age 60, you're going to see where they're spending or investing their dollars. It tracks popular brands in the Fortune 500, and it's a 50-50 split between fixed income and equities. But I don't see a lot. We're seeing less than 1% of flows going into that. And then First Trust Barclays Edge, pretty new, only a couple of 3 years old, and we're not seeing good returns out of that. So I'd steer clear of that for now until the investment environment changes. A couple of disclosures for you to make sure that we stay on the up and up. Here's this presentation for the purpose of avoiding penalties that may be imposed on the taxpayer. So if you're ready to learn more, you'd like to run some case scenarios by E4 Insurance Services, call your RVP, call Todd, wherever you're located in the country, and we'll be able to run those scenarios for you. Thanks for having me, Todd.
Greg, thank you for your time. And I will reiterate what you said about having the next generation included in the conversation. So many clients I meet with, the financial advisors don't necessarily have that relationship with the next generation. So I'll reiterate that it's very good to bring them into it. So as we wrap up today, I'd like to remind you that today's brew and entire library are recorded and shared on the brew page on our website, which can be found at www.e4.insurance. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel to keep up with our brewcast. They're released every Wednesday. Next week, there will be no brewcast. We will start again in November with our MVP, Shane Van Patten, Regional Vice President at E4 Insurance Services, and he will be kicking off our lineup on long-term care. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you at our next week on the brew.